Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Please state your full name for the jury.
Curtis C. Flood.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a professional baseball player. I've been playing since I was 18. I'm a center fielder. I started off playing for Cincinnati for 2 years on the farm club, and then I was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals.
How did you react to the trade to the Cardinals?
I was shocked. No one had asked me, a 20-year-old, if I wanted to move, if I wanted to pack up my whole life, but I was moved and had to change my whole life.
And what is your life like in St. Louis?
I have a wife and 3 children. We recently bought a new house. I run a thriving photography business.
Where do your children go to school?
My youngest goes to CID, a school for the deaf and hearing impaired. She has a disability, but we want her to have the most opportunities possible.
What types of changes would occur if you had moved to Philadelphia?
I would lose out on revenue, my new home. My wife just told me she doesn't want to move at all under no circumstances. And we would lose the opportunity for my youngest to have her opportunity to learn.
How did you learn about the trade to the Phillies?
I was on October 8th, I got a phone call from Jim Toomey, and he told me I was being traded, and the next day I received an index card size notice saying that I was to report to Philadelphia.
If you wanted to stay in state, could you play for another team in Missouri, such as the Royals?
Sorry. I cannot. It's not up for me to decide, it's up to whoever owns me.
And what were your other options?
At this point, I had no other options. I'd been refused free agent status by Bowie Kuhn, and I could either play for the Phillies and not have any rights to myself, or I could retire.
So will you retire then?
I told Bowie Kuhn that I probably will retire, but that's not something I want to do. I've made it very clear to all of the managers and the staff of Organized Baseball that I have at least 5 years left of playing, and that's not something that I want to give up.
So since you don't want to retire, but you aren't playing this season, what are your plans?
This lawsuit takes up a lot of my time, but I'm trying to stay in shape so I can return to playing as soon as possible.
And what was your salary last year?
About $90,000.
Was this a high figure?
Yeah, I was one of the highest paid players.
And did you ever sign a player's contract?
I did. In 1957, my agent advised me that it was standard for baseball.
Did you continue to sign the player's contract after that?
I did. I continued to get raises, especially after we won the World Series in 1964. So I saw no issue staying with signing the 1-year option because I figured I'd be staying with the Cardinals.
Have you ever been prevented from playing baseball?
Just this season, I obviously was unhappy playing with I was unhappy being assigned to Philadelphia. So I requested free agent status, but I was denied that by Organized Baseball which I think is completely unfair and shows just the hold that the reserve system has on us.
Did you take part in the negotiations concerning yourself between the Cardinals and Phillies?
I didn't. If I had been given any choice, any say at all, I would have said no, absolutely not.
I'm sorry, I'm just missing some of the questions. I printed out the wrong one, I think. Yeah. Why are there no other players testifying with you?
They're scared. Other baseball players may have wanted, and I know they do feel the same as I do, but Organized Baseball and the reserve system has such a strong emotional hold on the players that every other player is afraid to speak out against the system.
And did you ever meet with Bowie Kuhn to talk about your complaints?
I didn't. There was a meeting offered, but I was advised not to because instead of placing a Band-Aid on this issue, we wanted a real fix.
And Mr. Flood, have you ever heard of Radovich versus NFL 1957?
I'm aware of it.
And what are your thoughts on that case?
Sorry. They ruled that the NFL was subject to antitrust laws, and I feel that baseball should be subject to the same rules.
Objection, Your Honor.
On what grounds?
Counsel is asking witness to give expert testimony on where she has nothing involved.
Counsel, would you like to respond to that objection? This was a question about a court case that happened some time back in regards to the National Football League. Is that not correct?
So if there was a case similar to yours, are you aware of it? Can I restate my question on that?
Well, the objection is that Mr. Flood, as a center fielder for the St. Louis Cardinals, really has no expertise to be able to comment on a prior Supreme Court ruling, whether or not it directly applies to his current case.
Not even on antitrust laws?
Counsel, would you like to respond to that?
Your Honor, this witness has not been made an expert witness and therefore cannot provide their opinion on this matter.
Anything further, Counsel? I'm going to sustain the objection, so we'll strike that from the record about any reference to what Mr. Flood thinks about the Radovich case in the past. So please move on.
Mr. Flood, would you say it's unfair that the MLB has moved you, an established player and businessman, because you've constructed a life in St. Louis?
Objection, reading the question.
Could you repeat the question? I missed the very first part.
Would you say it's unfair that the MLB has moved you, an established player, because you have constructed a life in St. Louis?
I'm going to overrule it. It's close, but I'm going to allow you to have that question. Yeah, you may answer it.
I think it's unfair and unreasonable, along with being inconsiderate. If someone asks you to move your life in the span of a day and your whole life changed, wouldn't you think it's unfair too?
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Counsel. Cross-examination? Those are good objections. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Hello, Counsel. You may begin.
Mr. Flood, before signing with the Cardinals, you were in a farm league in Venezuela.
Is that a question? No, is that, okay.
Well,
No.
I was playing for Cincinnati training in Venezuela.
And you were hoping to be called up to the major leagues.
Yes.
That was your goal. You wanted to play in the major leagues.
Yeah.
Your Honor, at this point, I'd like to approach the witness and present his own affidavit as an exhibit, but not evidence.
Okay, yep, you may approach the witness and give the witness sworn affidavit.
Mr. Flood, I'm showing you an affidavit. Is this your signature?
Yeah.
And you signed this under oath.
Yes.
At this point, I'd like to read for the jury a highlighted section from paragraph 1.
Okay.
In 1957, I was in Venezuela learning infield play at the suggestion of the Cincinnati coaches in the hope of being called up from the farm club where I had spent the most of the last 2 years. So you're hoping to make the major leagues.
Correct.
When you got recruited by the Cardinals, you signed a contract.
I was traded to the Cardinals.
And you read the contract, but before you played, you signed a contract. And you read the contract.
Correct.
And your lawyer explained it to you.
Yes.
You were suddenly being paid $7,000 a year for playing baseball, which is what you love to do.
Yes.
You signed the contract because you wanted to earn that salary, and you wanted to play baseball in the major leagues, and so you signed with the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's my question.
Yeah, just follow up with, is that right, or?
Is that
you know,
correct?
Yep, yep.
I signed the contract because my agent advised that it was standard for baseball.
And you wanted to play in the major leagues.
Yes.
No one forced you to sign the contract, correct?
No.
And no one threatened you to sign it.
No.
You did not have any other offers from other major league clubs that matched the Cardinals offer, did you?
You can't get offers in baseball.
Right.
You aren't a free agent.
You had no other offers. Correct?
Yeah.
So you were simply happy to get into the major leagues.
Yes.
That meant a big change in your standard of living, and it meant a big change in your status as a baseball player. Correct?
Right.
After that, you were receiving regular raises. In just 7 years, in 1964, your salary was up to $30,000, correct? And after that, in 1969, your salary was up to $90,000. You like the fact that you were getting these regular salary increases, correct?
Wouldn't?
I'd like to read a section from paragraph 2 of your affidavit that says, "I knew the contract required me to play for the Cardinals or the team to which they assigned or traded me, but things were going great and I kept getting raises."
Counsel, if I can interrupt you, if you would like to do that, that's fine, but isn't it true that you said, and then quote, okay?
So is it true that you said, "I knew the contract required me to play for the Cardinals or the team to which they assigned or traded me, but things were going great and I kept getting raises"? So you like the money of baseball?
Baseball is my passion, but who doesn't appreciate getting rewards from it?
And it wasn't until 12 years after you signed the contract with the Cardinals that you made an objection to the contract. It wasn't until 1969 that you tried to avoid the contract.
Listen,
Correct?
yes,
And you tried to avoid the contract because you did not want to move,
I tried to request free agent status.
because you didn't want to move from the St. Louis team.
I didn't want to uproot my life. Correct.
At that point, you were making $90,000 a year, correct?
Yes.
And so at this point, let's go back to the contract. You knew that the contract you signed said you could be traded, correct?
Yes.
And that you knew the contract you signed says you could be traded if you did not want to. And if you did not want to, you had 2 options. Option 1 was to go to the new team as directed, and option 2 was to refuse to go and quit. And those were your only 2 options, correct?
Evidently.
So the contract did not give you the option of refusing the trade and suing. The contract did not give you the option of refusing the trade and playing for a different team. And the contract did not give you the option of pretending that you had not signed the contract in the first place. And you knew that, and you agreed to that, correct?
Filing a lawsuit is a right for everyone in the United States, but correct.
No further questions.
Thank you, Counsel. Is there any redirect? Oh,
Actually, 2 more questions.
you have more questions?
Deep.
I'll give you 2 more questions, Counsel. Yeah.
30 seconds.
Okay. So you filed the lawsuit because you felt because you did not want to be part of the contract anymore, correct? And because of that, you're suing. The Cardinals had held up its end of the bargain. Okay, no further.
Go first, thank you.
Nice.
1 moment, not yet. Is there a redirect? You have an opportunity to redirect with 1 or 2 questions?
Is it for each witness has 1 or 2? Or-
Yes, each witness, 1 or 2.
All right, so
Yep,
when
and
you
you
said-
can just stand from your table to do redirect. You may, thank you, sir.
So I have 2. What did you decide to challenge your contract?
Jurors, can you hear the question okay? Okay.
Jack can hear it.
When did you decide to challenge your new contract?
Once my life was uprooted,
And when you decided to file a lawsuit, on what grounds did you do it?
like violation of antitrust laws, involuntary servitude, and anti-competitive.
Okay, thank you. You can recross on those 2 questions if you'd like, Counsel. You don't have to, but if you'd like to recross on those 2 points that were just raised, you may. Nope, okay, thank you. Mr. Flood, you may be seated. Does the